Next up, I'm joined by two-term Newton City Councilor Jake Auchincloss, who previously served as a captain in the Marines and has worked in the private sector as well. Jake Auchincloss, thank you for being here.
I appreciate you having me on.
It is obviously a crowded field. I'm asking all the candidates, and I'll do this with you, what sets you apart as you see it from your rivals?
When the Boston Globe endorsed me, they said I was the candidate best positioned to represent a district of haves and have-nots. As a Marine officer, I led Americans from all walks of life. As a city councilor, I've built coalitions to get real, meaningful progress on the environment, housing, education, immigration. And as a candidate for Congress, I've put together a full district campaign, not just my colleagues in Newton who have seen me work over the last 5 years, but also leaders of the southeastern part of Massachusetts, Mayor of New Bedford, Mayor of Fall River, State Rep Pat Haddad. And that ability to build coalitions for progress, that ability to unite this full district is what sets me apart.
You joined the Marines pretty quickly after you graduated from Harvard College, right? Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say I was a junior in Harvard when I made the decision. It was during the surge to Afghanistan. And I decided that at a time when America was at war, I had something to give back to a service and to a country that had sent my grandfather, a poor 17-year-old Jewish kid, to college in the darkest hours of World War II in 1942.
You anticipated where I was going with this. You could have done a whole bunch of stuff at that point, especially going to Harvard as you did. You joined the Marines. I'm wondering if you're thinking about the nature of U.S. involvement in Afghanistan shifted from the time that you made the decision to join as a college junior to the time you got out, and maybe even where you are today, or if you still think about our presence there the way you did back when you decided to sign up.
Yes, short answer is it did change quite significantly. Joining the Marine Corps was one of the best decisions I ever made. I had the opportunity to work with some of the finest Americans I've ever known, and wearing the uniform has been one of the proudest things I've ever done. Having said that, the United States has spent 19 years and $6 trillion, cost hundreds of thousands of innocent lives in 2 failed forever wars overseas. On the ground, the lies were plain to see. The U.S. Inspector General has put it quite simply that, quote, the American people have constantly been lied to about Afghanistan. Well, that was obvious when you're patrolling 3 Taliban-controlled villages at the beginning of our drawdown. And it has really made me viscerally appreciate the fact that Democrats need to step up on national security. For too long, we've watched the pitch go by, and no more when I'm in Congress. I'm going to be a forceful voice for drawing down our presence in these failed forever wars, for keeping our hands off Iran, for pivoting to containing China, but mostly for bringing back that attention and those resources to reinvesting in education and healthcare and infrastructure here at home.
Let me ask you about your history of party affiliation, because as you mentioned, the Globe endorsed you, and then in this very unusual interview that you did with the Ed Page editor, Bina Venkatraman, after that, she pressed you on various issues in a way that I haven't seen. It was an unusual moment for politics and media. All that being said, you were a Democrat, and then you became a Republican, as I understand it, when you worked for Charlie Baker's first campaign. Tell me if I'm getting anything wrong here. And then, obviously, you became a Democrat again. Now you're running as a Democrat for Congress. I'm wondering if, in the course of shifting your affiliation, if your beliefs about politics were changing over the course of that period, or whether you were just picking different labels for yourself with your core beliefs remaining the same.
Well, my core values and beliefs have always remained the same. I think anybody from the age of 22 to 32, I would hope their political beliefs would evolve. I mean, I'm constantly learning and maturing in my political views, and that's going to continue throughout the rest of my life. I'm an Obama-Baker voter. I, as you said, was a Democrat growing up and a Democrat in my 20s, and wanted to work for Charlie Baker because I saw in him someone who would be science-driven, fact-based, and would bring people together to solve hard problems. We've seen the very best of that in his response to COVID. I'm going to be a strong partner for him in Congress for COVID relief and recovery, not just making sure we have the public health infrastructure here in Massachusetts to beat this disease, but also that we have an inclusive economic recovery for southeastern Massachusetts. I don't think having a strong relationship with Charlie Baker is a liability in this race. I think it's a strength, and I think voters are going to see the fact that the next member of Congress can pick up the phone and talk to the governor day in, day out is a good thing.
Not to belabor the party affiliation issue too much, but one follow-up. Did you need to become a Republican to work on Baker's campaign, or could you have done the work you did for him? My understanding is you worked for the state party and then for a consultancy shop. Could you have done that as an unenrolled voter?
I wanted to support him against the Tea Party challenger, really quite a reactionary figure. And to do that, I
Scott
felt...
Lively, this is?
Sorry?
Are we talking, pardon me, I said Scott Lively, but I think you're talking Mark Fisher, right?
Yeah. I wanted to support him against a Tea Party challenger who represented the very worst impulses that have now become nationalized in the Republican Party. But my support was for Charlie Baker. And I'm an Obama Baker voter who is going to continue to work, have a close relationship with Governor Baker for COVID relief and recovery.
If you make it to Congress, what is the first piece of legislation you think you'd file?
I think that depends, frankly, on whether we've got a President Trump or a President Biden. I think, like most Americans right now, it's likely that we're going to have a President Biden, but I fully understand the risks that we have of a second term, which would be a catastrophe. If we have a second term for Donald Trump, it's nothing less than preserving the Constitution of the United States and saving the Republic from what would be a cataclysm. If we have a President Biden, I think there's a tremendous amount of good work that we can do, and I'll give a couple of examples. One is carbon pricing. I've been the first candidate in this race to call for putting a price on carbon, using those dividends to invest in green infrastructure and green R&D, which can help Massachusetts transition to a clean energy economy. And there are 7 bills in Congress right now that would do that. I want to work on any of those 7 that can get across the finish line, pulling together both progressives and moderates to get a bill onto President Biden's desk.
Earlier this year, you expressed concern about government enforcement of mask guidance or mask mandates. You said that you thought it might be a First Amendment issue, telling people that they had to don a certain piece of apparel. Can you talk me through your reasoning there briefly? Because when I first learned about this comment that you'd made, which I only learned recently, I thought, well, this doesn't seem like a First Amendment issue. It seems like it's a question of public health and good science.
Yeah, no, I need to correct the record there. So I've been talking about public health and masks since April when I've done a series of webinars with Dr. Ashish Jha, arguably the world's leading epidemiologist and public health expert on COVID. I've done a series of seminars with him, educating voters in Newton and throughout the district on the COVID path and recovery. My concern was having police issue citations, fining people at a time when there is increased concern over police constituent interactions and, frankly, the latitude we give police to make judgments that have disproportionately affected Black and brown communities. So I got to correct the record on that statement. I know criticism is a part of politics, and I'm okay with it, but I am going to make sure that the facts are known.
I understand from what you're saying that your concern was policing, but did you use the phrase First Amendment issue or cite the First Amendment as a possible reason to not have law enforcement cracking down?
My concern was about the police having the latitude to infringe on how people are going about their daily lives when we know that when we give that latitude to police, it's Black and brown communities that can disproportionately suffer.
I have 2 final super quick questions for you, awkward questions, and you have very little time to answer them. That's good news for you. If you couldn't vote for yourself, but had to vote for another candidate in this race, who would it be?
Well, I wish that we had ranked choice voting so that voters didn't have to make the decisions that they're making all or nothing. I think ranked choice voting, of which I've been a very strong early supporter, would allow us to have a better, frankly, more healthy campaign.
So if we had it, who's your number 2?
I'm focused on my number 1 choice and getting me across the finish line.
I thought you might say that. And my final question for you, Jake Auchincloss. You're running to replace Joe Kennedy. He is running against Ed Markey. Who are you going to vote for in that race?
I'm going to have a strong working relationship with the next senator for Massachusetts, and I think the best way to do that is to remain neutral here.
All right, Jake Auchincloss, thank you for taking time to talk with us, and good luck in the final week of your campaign.
I appreciate you having me on.